Welcome everybody to another ep of Office Hour Tangents. Just left class and let's get it. Today's tangent in class. So just to as a precursor to like basically the last, 6 or 7 that I've done of these. I've been teaching for the last 8 weeks. I've been teaching interaction design type class. I've been teaching interactive design 1. I've been teaching interactive design 3. So hence the content that's coming out of these podcasts are very internet interactivity based. Some of them aren't, right? So just when I teach other classes, so in a week I'll be teaching a class called Visual Communication Theory, but I teach it kind of like a design thinking class. So I'm excited about that class because I know a lot of tangents are going to come from that class. So again, I just left my Interaction Design 3 class, and what happened before class, I watched a YouTube video from South by Southwest, a presentation at South by Southwest, the most recent one. I think it just happened maybe a couple weeks ago. And it was the founder of Patreon. And Patreon's not a platform that I have ever used before. I've heard about it. I hear people saying, go, visit my Patreon. I just thought it was a way to, support content creators financially or something like that. And I never explored it. But after listening to this guy talk, he approached it more from an angle of, he kind of went on this kind of timeline of Web 1.0, Web 2.0, and what Web 3.0 or 3 may look, and how kind of Patreon fits in there. But I was more interested. Actually, he got me excited to check Patreon out. So in the near future, I might have a Patreon profile, and I might at the end or beginning of these videos start saying, hey, go support my Patreon. I don't know. But the angle I was looking at more was like that timeline between Web 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0. So just a little, not history, but just to kind of lead up to what I was talking about in class. The internet, if you think about it, is not that old, right? I don't know the exact date, historians would know. And I used to teach it in class. I just know the founder of it is Tim Berners-Lee. He founded the internet, and it was for military purposes originally. And then, just like most groundbreaking technology, is used for one purpose, and then it reaches the end of that purpose, and then it's kind of like, this is still great technology, but we are having trouble figuring out another way to use it, usually to make money or just, let's not just throw this tech away. So a lot of times they'll give this tech to universities and just say, hey, y'all figure out a way to use this. And that's what they did, and they gave it to universities, and universities throughout the years, use it as a way to kind of communicate with other universities. And then, then it just birthed into the internet we know today, right? So you can Wikipedia it if you want. So when the internet kind of came to popularity, whereas like people were starting to use it on a regular basis, that was like the early 90s. And that's not that long ago. Like, I was around when there was no internet. Like, it wasn't even thought about. It was percolating because I think it came out in the 70s somehow, but it wasn't percolating as a consumer product. And I didn't really get on the internet or start using the internet until high school, like late high school. And I didn't really get on the internet heavy until college. So that's early to late 90s. Early to late 90s. Like 19, I would say, I didn't get on the internet like heavy until probably like 96, 97, to be honest. So anyway, the internet it's a very, very new technology and a new platform. And we consider that when the internet kind of first came out and how the internet kind of felt and looked, people consider that Web 1.0. This is like the label put on it, but it's like an unofficial label, right? This is a label put on it because we just like labels as human beings, right? So at Web 1.0, what that entailed was, and I did take a little bit of notes so I didn't forget some of this. It's considered between 1989 and 2004. It's a big swath, right? So I think 89 just represents like the beginning of consumer frequented internet to 2004. Now, 2004, that's 3 years before the iPhone came out. So it was Web 1.0 for a minute. And Web 1.0, what that means in the most simple way I can put it, I mean, I've kind of read up on it a little bit, but the most simple way for these purposes is we consumed content on the internet. That was Web 1.0. It was basically only thing we could do was consume content. It was just like log into a website, or not log in, go to a website, and then look at it, scroll, read, watch. You know, it was some great content, but it was mainly you watching it. So, you know, I like my split screens. So this is like basic Web 1.0. If I had to give an example, a modern example, Wikipedia. Wikipedia is like Web 1.0 on steroids, right? It's Web 1.0. It's meant to be consumed. It's just content. You're not meant to interact with it. Yes, you can add your own content to Wikipedia, and that's one delineation people don't know a lot of times is that Wikipedia is not the end all be all. It is not written by experts. Some of it is. A lot of it may be. But I can sign up, get vetted, and change the content, right? Without being checked. And then, throughout time, it may get checked. But the Wikipedia is not like encyclopedias used to be. Like it had to go through checks and balances and get checked. It's just they just share some of the name phonics. But Wikipedia is not like encyclopedia. I just wanted to say that. But anyway, Web 1.0 on steroids is like Wikipedia. It's just meant to be consumed. We consume the content. Another example of a lot of personal websites, right? So if you have a portfolio site, you have a personal website that you coded yourself, that's still Web 1.0. It's just meant to be consumed. It's like it's a virtual business card. It's a virtual brochure, right? And I'm just taking an opportunity to show some of my old stuff. So this was my original, I won't say original, but this was my original portfolio page. It was gobecraft.com. And it was all in Flash. But it's still just Web 1.0. It's like it's just content meant to be consumed. And I have my stuff. It doesn't mean that stuff wasn't moving and we had music and we had video. We had all of that. It was just, video was a little more difficult to get on these websites. Audio too. Anything beyond just HTML and CSS, it was kind of difficult to implement it. But, over time you could implement it. And especially with Flash, I was able to rock it. I just want to show the original version of this site. I had a little dot following the cursor, and that was actually the menu. And I was doing too much, no doubt. But I thought the design was dope. But it was just Web 1.0, right? So again, Web 1.0 is we, as consumers, we consumed content. It just allowed us to consume the content. Of course, there were some sites where you could do more, of course, but the majority of the web was meant for consumption. Now, Web 2.0 ushered in, and I would say people consider that the era between 2004 to now. So we're still in Web 2.0. Web 2.0 is still rocking. Web 3 and Web 3 and Web 3.0 and all that stuff, that's just speculation right now, right? And Web 2.0, what that generally means, if I compare it to the original, what I came up with for Web 1.0, or I didn't come up, but I kind of saw it, and I'm just kind of moving the words around. Web 2.0 is we produce and consume content. So we added, the web matured and allowed us to start producing our own content. So a good example of Web 2.0 in the very beginning was Facebook, right? So this is one of the first Facebook pages when it was Facebook, I don't know, when it was still at Harvard or Yale, one of those Ivy League schools that Zuckerberg was at. So you can create a page and put information. Another one of those would be like MySpace. That was like an early Web 2.0 product. Black Planet. Anything social leaning, Instagram, TikTok, that's all Web 2.0. we're able to produce our own content and we also consume the content. So we're able to produce and consume content in Web 2.0, right? Instagram, things like that. Now, going forward, and this is where I started talking to my class about, it's kind of like I asked them a question. I was like, I asked them, is there anything in the modern internet? So when they're using the internet, and I don't even know if they get that concept. When I ask them the question, it's almost like, so they grew up with the internet. So the internet is almost like lights to them. It's just something that just exists, and it is always existed, and it will always exist, right? So I was like, have you ever kind of been on the internet and like wished you can do something, but you just can't do it? Like it just didn't exist. And they're looking at me like, nah, almost like with a look of the internet is perfect. There's nothing wrong with the internet. The internet is perfect how it is now. Like, I thoroughly enjoy it. That's the look they gave me. Like, what you mean, like, change the internet? The internet's the internet. But, since I'm a little older, I have seen how the internet has changed. Like, I remember when I was working at Nationwide Insurance, I remember starting to use cascading style sheets. And that changed the whole game of the internet to me. Like, before that, we were using inline styles and we were using frames. We were using all these, like, this antiquated kind of markup language to try to get the web pages to look exactly how we designed them in Photoshop. And we was just using all these tricks. And then with cascading, I know cascading style sheets came out maybe mid-90s, but I didn't start using it until probably 2000. I remember it was introduced to me by a friend of mine, well, from back in the day. His name is David Rowe. And I remember he came and he was like, yo, there's this new thing called CSS that makes it easier to do this, and that, and this. And I was like, wow. And it just changed the whole game. It made things quicker. It made all the websites we created much more dynamic. So I remember how the internet kind of changed because of that. I remember when the internet changed because of Flash. I remember when the internet changed because the smartphone. I just remember all that stuff. So I know it's going to change again. I just don't know how. So I'm like tapping into the young people. Yeah, that sounded old. That sounded like an old dude, right? That's like an old dude term. Young people, like the young whippersnappers. I tapped into the students. I try to tap into the students because, Zuckerberg was in college when he formed Facebook. Steve Jobs was in college, I think, when he formed Apple, or he thought about Apple, right? These guys, a lot of these guys were in college when they came up with these ideas for these businesses. And I'm just tapping into my students, like, you're of the age where your mind is just percolating at a high rate. Help me. And they're just kind of like staring at me, which is warranted because that was a lot to ask. I ain't even leading. I just kind of walked into the class talking about this. So it got me thinking, like, what would I like to see in the future of the web? And I wouldn't even call it Web 3.0 or Web 3. And just a little note about, if you hear the term, or I don't even know who's listening, but there's some terms floating around on the internet, and it's there's one Web 3 and there's another one Web 3.0. So I researched it really quick, not deep at all, but I saw there was a difference between Web 3. What you're hearing lately is a lot of people saying Web 3. They're calling it Web 3. And I started hearing that a lot during COVID, especially, when cryptocurrencies were percolating and talks of the blockchain and all this stuff. And whenever I hear Web 3, I hear about blockchain. And it's like, from what I've read, people think Web 3 is going to be, the internet on the blockchain somehow. And I still don't really understand the blockchain. I've read it, and I still really don't understand it. But from what I understand of it, it just really seems that Web 3 will complement Web 2. Like, and it won't be a thing. It'll still be Web 2, Web 3, whatever they're calling it. It's a terrible label, would kind of sit in the background of Web 2. So right now, Web 2.0, what we would consider it, is kind of controlled by, about just a handful of companies. Like that's the fear. That's what's putting fear in a lot of people's hearts as far as how the web is now, how it's formed. Like it didn't start off like this. It started off like for the people. And now, if you think about it, it's only a handful of companies that control the whole entire web. If you think about it, it just is what it is. Like Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, Baidu, Alibaba, and Tencent. Like those companies kind of control the web, control like almost all the web. Because it's either we're using their cloud, we're using their social networks, we're using their resources, I don't know, but they kind of control the web. And it's almost like a centralized way of looking at the web. Like a lot of people will say the web now is very centralized amongst those big tech companies, which is kind of scary because they're just tech companies. You know what I'm saying? They're not government entities. They're not, nonprofit, people that's wanting to serve community. Nah, they're big tech companies, and big tech companies are all about money. So however the money rolls, that's how they're gonna formulate their powers. That's just how I see it, right? So when Web3 people come in, they're like, our job, we're gonna decentralize. That's when you hear the term decentralize. We're gonna decentralize the web. And again, that's a confusing term because it's like, how's this centralized? But that's what they're talking about, centralized big tech companies. Decentralization is like, I guess what they're saying is it'd be more in control of us, the consumers. It'd be more consumer based because it's be built on the blockchain. And I don't want to be in here trying to explain what a blockchain is because that's not how my mind works. So Web 3.0 though, so that's Web 3. Web 3.0 is a term, and I just learned this. That's a term that was coined by Tim Berners-Lee more recently. And his view of Web 3.0 is a semantic web, which I don't understand. And I did look it up real quick, and I will have to study it more. I don't really understand it, but I just want to say that's the difference. Web 3 is different than Web 3.0. So it makes it seem like Web 3, Web 3.0, that's not a thing. It's just really not a thing. So what I'm calling it is like, what's the future of the web going to look like? Like, that's the question I was asking my students. And I'll ask my students going forward, like, what do you think the web is going to look like in 10 years or 20 years? Because it's not going to look the same. Is it going to look like Wreck-It Ralph breaks the internet or something like that? Is it going to look like, is it going to be more like Decentraland? When we was in lockdown and Meta was percolating hard, because, we didn't have anything to do. Meta was basically threw all their hats in saying that the web of the future is going to be in the metaverse. Like I was reading articles and seeing videos saying that the future of the web is going to be us, instead of us kind of like surfing the internet with our mouse or with our devices with, swiping and gesturing. We're going to be in a virtual kind of universe going and finding information, going to buy stuff, going to communicate with our friends in the social networks. It was going to be more like Ready Player One. I wouldn't go that far, but it was just going to be a place where you just kind of sit down like you would do now on the computer and you would kind of be in this kind of universe that you kind of see. I need to start putting my split screen on the other side. So when I point, it makes sense because the computer's over here, but I'm pointing over here. But anyway, so the web, and that wasn't that long ago. So the web might be like Decentraland. It might be us walking around, just kind of doing stuff in a metaverse. I don't know. We're in a time where I really don't know what the future holds. Or, the new Vision Pro came out and the Meta Quest 3 Pro. Maybe the future of the web is going to be like this. Apple's kind of trying, it seems like Apple is leaning that direction. So this is not really a change of the web per se. This is more so like a change of where the web will be. So instead of in our hands, or in addition to in our hands and on a computer screen, It's now going to be a computer on our face. I think out of the options I've thought about, might be the most realistic one. And then the innovations will come out of how this can be utilized, how kind of like this kind of interaction can be utilized. What dopeness can come out of basically having the web on your face. Because right now, what the Vision Pro can do is nothing special, to be honest. Because it's just, you can put a website, like this dude is looking at a website, I think. It's like a big, giant computer screen. That's about it. And you can move it and you can watch it while you're on the subway, but it's still a website, right? So, that's what we talked about. That was the tangent we went on for the most part. And I would say the tangent I went on. It was like, what's the future of the web? What's the future of the web going to look like? But what I came up with, when I just did my brief kind of research, and because when I was talking about it, I was like, I don't know much about this to even be talking about it. But I think it's interesting. But what I did come up with from some of the, if somebody was to ask me, what do you think the future of the web is going to be? I would say I would start from the past. I would say, hey, Web 1.0 was that we consume content, right? Web 2.0 is we produce and consume content. That's what we're doing now. Then I say the future of the web is going to be back to we consuming content. But we're going to be consuming machine-generated content. So it's like we consume content, to we produce and consume the content, to we're consuming content, we're consuming machine-generated content. It's like we're going backwards. It's like we're going back to the essence. And I don't really say essence. Essence sounds great. And I don't know if the future of the web with machine-generated content is going to be great. We're going to go back to, it's like we're going backwards. I think that's a better way to put it. I honestly think that the more present future of the internet is going to resemble it's going to more resemble the past than the future. And as I say that, probably not. But when I say the past, I'm thinking like we just going to consume content, right? Like there's only a few people that really make TikTok content, right? But we all know, and I looked it up, and you can look it up. A lot of TikTok content is AI generated. A lot of YouTube content now is AI generated. There's companies right now where you can just look it up, just Google it. Hey, help me generate content using artificial intelligence. And it was like put in a prompt and it'll come up with the videos for you, it'll come up with the music for you and the story if you want. So what a lot of the stuff we're watching is AI generated anyway. And it's just like back in the day, just consuming content, just sitting back and watching machine generated content. And TikTok is just a good example of that, of just billions of people just sitting there consuming machine-generated content for hours. They're just consuming. It's like what our parents was thinking we were doing when we were just watching TV, because they grew up in a time when TVs weren't, crazy present in houses. And then, when we were coming up, we had TVs, and when we had cable, and it was color TVs, and then we had VCRs, So they were like, stop watching all that TV, because they called it the boob tube. They thought it was making us dumber, right? And it may have. I don't know. It probably wasn't, because what's now is pales in comparison to just watching He-Man all day. But now, death scrolling, it's a term for it. Death scrolling, hours. People be on TikTok and YouTube, and everybody's joined the TikTok thing of the whole. So I want to backtrack a little bit. One of the things the guy that I'm mad I don't remember his name, but he was talking about in his presentation was that the subscription model was great for creators. So we could create content like even this podcast right here. I can create this content and then you could subscribe. So first of all, you can just find it and you can watch it, and it's like a crapshoot to see who's going to watch it. It's like you happen to tune in and it happens to come up. And you can actually subscribe. And then every time I post a new video, it's more apt to pop into your feed, right? But he's contending that the TikToks of the world have broken that system because now it's the algorithm. The algorithm is telling us what we want to see. It's not necessarily showing us. So, I remember when Facebook first came out, the only content I would see is this content from the people that I follow. So if I only follow 2 people, I will only see stuff from 2 people, right? But now, it just shows us content that we think we like. You don't have to follow anybody on TikTok or Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts. It just gives us content. It just gives us content the algorithm thinks we like. Like, hey, you've been looking at this. You probably like this stuff. Or you kind of search for possums before. We think you like this video about muskrats. That's how to do it. It's like, yeah, I think I do like muskrats. And then you like, yeah, man, this computer is smart. And then 4 hours later of seeing all this interesting stuff that the machine told you liked, it controls us better. It's just less personal. But what it's doing, according to this guy, is hurting the creators, where the whole point is to create great content, and then people will come. People will eventually find great content, and you will get more subscribers. But now the algorithm is not feeding you stuff from your subscribers primarily. It's just feeding you stuff. You may like. You see that term, you may also like. Some stuff you may also like. You probably like this. Then you see some stuff from a subscriber, and then it'd be like 10 things from non-subscribers or people that you subscribe to, right? And I thought that was a good point, and I agreed with him. I did agree with him. I don't know all the semantics behind it, but and then of course he's selling his creation, which is Patreon. But I did get that. I liked how he put it. So going back to my original point, as I think the near future of the internet, meaning the next, like right now, I think we're in it right now for the next at least 3 years. And this is just my opinion, is that we're going back to the boob tube era. That's what I'll coin it. Like we're going backwards to the boob tube, where we just kind of like consume content. We just consume it. We just look at it. And I think the vast majority of internet users just do that. We just look at the web, and the algorithm shows us what we like. Okay? So that's the future of the web. It seems kind of bleak. I hope it's more exciting than that. But when I started researching, and I just stopped because it was scary, because there was so many resources that help you and teach you how to create TikTok content using AI. And it was like, you can do nothing. You can do nothing. And then create 4 or 5 videos a day of interesting content. It'd be, you've seen these videos, and I'm not going to show it rolling right now, but you've seen these videos, how long, and it's some kind of AI generated voice, how long does it take to fly around the earth completely going 55 miles per hour? You know what I'm saying? And it starts like that, and you're like, I kind of want to see. Then it just has, any of those videos where it just has, all this imagery and video content back to back to back. Like if somebody did that for real, it would take them hours and hours and hours to pull off. And it's not the trade-off, the buyout, the result, the payoff is not worth that much work, right? And it's always like generic, very generic stock videos and stock imagery, and a very generic voice without ums and uhs, and it's just based on some stats that somebody just prompted, probably like, hey, do it. And I'm seeing more and more of that content. And I don't know if you knew this AI generated, but it's definitely like I have an 8-year-old and I just have to always put it in his ear. I don't want to like ruin it for him, but just I have to realize like some of the stuff you're watching is not real. It's not created by a real human being, and he really doesn't understand the concept. But he thinks everything he sees on YouTube is real, and I have to tell him like a lot of that stuff isn't. So anyway, I think we're going back to the boob tube era where we're just consuming and we're not producing. We're going to have producers that produce stuff, but we're just going to be more content of just like just watching content that's generated by a machine, right? So Web 1.0 again, consume content. Web 2.0, produce and consume content. The future of the web, the near future of the web, according to me, we're back to consuming machine-generated content. Like, this is TV. So, that was the tangent I went on today, and it was, it started going down a dark path, and I chose to stop it because it was like, as I kept talking, I was like, ooh, this don't sound like a good future for the web. Maybe we just get fed up by the web, and we just kind of turn to something else. That's what I hope. I honestly do. Like, we turn to something else, whatever that something else may be, that's, more entertaining. Because I don't think we're going to just say we're not going to be entertained by the web anymore. It's going to take something more entertaining than the web. I don't know what that will be. But like I said, we're in a wild, wild west times where we don't know what's about to happen. So, yeah, that was it for the office hour tangent today. It was kind of a short one. But, again, I'm going to get this going. I'm going to get this right. But subscribe to my page. If it's YouTube, just subscribe to Brandan Craft. And then if you're on Spotify, subscribe to the Spotify. And I think I'm going to get a Patreon. I don't want to be that guy. I'm not trying to get money. Like, I might just make it free. But I just want to see I want to see who, if I have what they would call supporters. Just supporters, like people that are like, yeah, I'm supporting this. Not just like, kind of watching it sometimes. And I think that's pretty much everybody that's watching it now, right? Just kind of watching it if you catch it. But I wonder, even if it's like one or two people that's just like, yeah, I'll subscribe to your Patreon just to, be up in it. And I'll think of some special stuff for Patreon subscribers. I don't know. Maybe I'll critique work. Maybe if you send me artwork or your design work and I'll critique it, if you're a subscriber, or, I'll help you with your ideas or something like that. I love doing that. See, another tangent. Peace.